Have you ever found yourself unable to leave a relationship that you know is harmful to you? You're aware of the red flags, you've felt the pain. Maybe you've even promised yourself, this is the last time. But somehow, you always end up going back. If this sounds familiar, you might be experiencing what psychologists call a trauma bond. You think you love them. You think it's because you're a good person. You might even think you're humble. Maybe you think it's because you have loads of empathy. That's why you keep forgiving behaviors that affect your mental health and self-esteem. But no, it's not love, it's not empathy. You are not soulmates, that's a big lie. What is it then? You might be trauma bonded. Many people are not aware. That's why they keep going back to insults, abuse, and other forms of toxic behavior. Their mental health keeps sounding the alarm. Sometimes they take a bold step and leave. Sometimes they set boundaries. But sooner or later they feel they can't stay, so they go back into an abusive relationship. Babe, you're trauma bonded. Please get a hold of yourself. See, when you are trauma bonded, you keep acting stupid even when you're not. Ultimately, it will have effects on your self-esteem and general mental health. It's not because you're stupid. It's because you have a trauma bond. But I'll urge you, before you make a fool of yourself, it's time to sit up. Learn about trauma bond today and take steps to deal with it. The impact on your mental health is too costly. Let me explain something that most people don't get. The truth is, the abuse and insults are what further diminishes your self-esteem. Let me paint this picture again. When you have a fight, you separate from them. But you're having a hard time staying without them, so you go back. Do you know why? It's because over time, their toxicity has further reduced your self-esteem. So when you leave them and stay alone, you feel worse, you feel lonely. So what do? You decide to go back because you can't handle your lack of self-esteem on your own. But the price you pay is another insult. This further damages your self-esteem. Let me explain something to you. Over time, abuse and insults stresses the nervous system. That's why it is so hard for you to deal with some situations on your own. So when you're in a tough situation because your mental state is already fatigued, you lack the capacity to handle these situations. At this point, you want to have a charismatic person around you. So you go back to your abuser. This is why even when they abuse you, you make excuses and go back to them. But after some time, they hit with another insult, which further damages your mental health and nervous system. But since you don't realize the abuse is worsening your self-worth, you still go back to them. The more you continue this cycle, the less of yourself you have left. But because you don't have the courage to fight low self-esteem, you continue in a bad cycle. But I promise you that the day you find the courage to set boundaries and stick to them, it's the day you'll start finding your confidence and start building your self-esteem back. Over time, you'll feel better. Because the insults and abuse that used to degrade your self-esteem are no longer there. Today, I want to talk about this powerful psychological phenomenon that keeps so many people trapped in cycles of abuse, particularly in relationships with narcissistic individuals. Understanding trauma bonds can be the first crucial step toward breaking free from these destructive patterns. What exactly is a trauma bond? A trauma bond is an intense emotional attachment formed through repeated cycles of abuse, punctuated by intermittent reinforcement of reward and punishment. In simpler terms, it's the emotional attachment you form with someone who periodically treats you with kindness after episodes of cruelty or neglect. These bonds aren't formed because you're weak or because you enjoy suffering. They're created through powerful neurochemical and psychological processes that can affect anyone, regardless of intelligence, background, or strength of character. Think of it like an addiction, where the rare moments of kindness or love act as the high that keeps you hooked in an otherwise painful relationship. And just like with other addictions, breaking free requires far more than simply knowing better or trying harder. Trauma bonds don't happen overnight. You develop them over time. The more you keep making excuses for abuse and insults, the stronger it gets. The relationship typically begins with what we call love bombing, an overwhelming display of affection, attention, and adoration. The narcissist makes you feel special, understood, and valued like never before. This phase creates a powerful baseline of positive feelings that you'll later crave when things change. During this stage, your brain is flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, the the feel-good chemicals associated with bonding and pleasure. This is when they do special things like cook a meal, entertain you, go everywhere with you. During those times, you're essentially getting high on love, and this neurochemical experience creates a powerful imprint in your emotional memory. Then comes the shift. The warmth and adoration gradually, or sometimes suddenly, transform into criticism, coldness, or outright abuse. This is incredibly disorienting. Your brain struggles to reconcile how someone who showed such love could now be so cruel. Rather than recognizing this as a red flag, many people respond by trying harder to regain that initial wonderful connection. What makes trauma bonds so powerful is the pattern of intermittent reinforcement. Narcissists are so good at reconciliations. They could buy you a house or cook you a meal at 6 a.m. But when the times comes, they'll hit you with such insults and abuse that your nervous system and self-esteem takes a hit. Studies in behavioral psychology have shown that unpredictable rewards create the strongest behavioral conditioning. It's the same principle that makes gambling so addictive. While trauma bonds can form in various types of relationships, they're particularly common and intense in relationships with narcissistic individuals. Let me explain why. Narcissists are experts at the cycle that creates trauma bonds. The initial idealization phase comes naturally to them. They genuinely do see you as perfect at first, projecting all their fantasies of the ideal partner onto you. And when the devaluation comes, it's often swift and bewildering. What makes narcissistic abuse particularly binding is the element of gaslighting, making you question your own reality, memories, and perceptions. When you confront a narcissist about their behavior, they'll often deny it entirely or twist it so convincingly that you end up apologizing to them instead. And oh, some do apologize. These are the ones called covert narcissists. We also have vulnerable narcissists. These are the ones who will insult or abuse you if you let them. They pretend to respect you, but you see them doing crazy, disrespectful things. Things they shouldn't even do in the first place. When you come straight at them, you see them apologizing. This reality distortion gradually diminishes your trust in yourself, making you increasingly dependent on the narcissist's version of reality. And when you're uncertain of your own perceptions, making the decision to leave becomes nearly impossible. Another critical factor is that narcissists are often highly attuned to exactly when you're about to leave. Just when you've reached your breaking point, they sense it and return to that charming, loving person you first met, just long enough to reset the cycle and pull you back in. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share our content with a friend to enlighten them about these toxic dynamics that's really doing damage to their nervous system. You may ask, how can I know if I'm trauma bonded? Let's talk about some signs that might indicate you're caught in a trauma bond. Here are a few. You make excuses for your partner's harmful behavior or find yourself constantly defending them to concerned friends and family. Despite being treated poorly, you feel intensely anxious at the thought of leaving. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid triggering your partner's anger or disappointment. When you do try to leave, you experience overwhelming physical and emotional symptoms similar to drug withdrawal. You've lost interest in things you once enjoyed and have gradually isolated from supportive people in your life. You find yourself accepting behaviors you previously would have considered absolute deal breakers. Despite the pain, you're still convinced that this person is your soulmate or that your connection is special in a way others couldn't understand. You cycle between feeling worthless when they criticize you and euphoric when they show you the slightest kindness. If several of these resonate with you, you may be experiencing a trauma bond rather than healthy attachment. Staying in a relationship dominated by a trauma bond extracts a heavy toll on your well-being. The effects can be far-reaching and profoundly damaging. The constant stress of living in an abusive relationship triggers your body's fight-or-flight response. This chronic state of high alert floods your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Over time, this stress response can lead to serious health problems. Compromised immune function, making you more susceptible to illness. Digestive problems and changes in appetite. Sleep disturbances and chronic fatigue. Increased risk of heart disease and high blood pressure. Exacerbation of existing health conditions. Unexplained pain and physical symptoms. Many people report frequent illnesses like persistent headaches or stomach issues that mystify their doctors. until they connect these symptoms to the stress of their relationship. The psychological impact is equally severe. Chronic anxiety and hypervigilance, depression and hopelessness, diminished self-esteem and confidence, post-traumatic stress symptoms, difficulty trusting your own perceptions, a result of gaslighting, shame and self-blame, difficulty setting boundaries in all relationships, loss of identity and sense of purpose. Over time, you may find yourself unrecognizable, a shadow of the person you once were. This transformation doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because trauma bonds are designed to break down your sense of self. The effects extend beyond your relationship with the abuser. Isolation from friends and family who can't understand why you stay. Adopting unhealthy relationship patterns in other connections. Difficulty trusting anyone's motives or affection. Teaching children, if present, that abusive dynamics are normal. This isolation further strengthens the trauma bond, as your abuser becomes your primary or only source of connection and validation. This is why abusers often have dirt on everyone. This seed they sow about people is to distort your perception of every other person so that you'll ultimately fall back to them. These subtle seeds create a subconscious perception in you that there's no good person out there, so you have to stick with them. Breaking a trauma bond is incredibly difficult, but it is absolutely possible. Here's how to begin the journey toward freedom. 1. Name what's happening. The first step is recognizing and naming the dynamic. Understanding that you're experiencing a trauma bond, not love, not destiny, not a special connection. It helps shift your perspective from, I can't live without this person, to, I'm experiencing a psychological attachment formed through trauma. 2. Educate yourself. Learn everything you can about trauma bonds, narcissistic abuse, and the cycle of abuse. Knowledge truly is power in this situation. When you understand the mechanics of what's happening to you, the spell begins to weaken. 3. Rebuild your support system. Abusive relationships thrive in isolation. Begin cautiously reconnecting with friends and family who support you, or seek out support groups for survivors of narcissistic abuse. Having people who understand what you're going through is invaluable. 4. Create distance. Breaking a trauma bond usually requires physical and emotional distance from your abuser. This might mean a period of no contact, when possible and safe, limiting communication to essential matters only, using a neutral third party for necessary communications, removing reminders of the person from your daily environment. Each period of separation weakens the biochemical addiction and gives you space to regain clarity. 5. Work with a trauma-informed therapist. A therapist who understands trauma bonding can be your lifeline. They can help you process traumatic experiences without re-traumatization, develop strategies for managing withdrawal symptoms, rebuild your sense of self and reality, create healthy boundaries, address underlying attachment patterns that made you vulnerable. Healing is rarely a straight line, and having professional support can make all the difference when you face inevitable setbacks. 6. Practice radical self-compassion. The shame many survivors feel is perhaps the most painful aspect of healing. Remember that trauma bonds can happen to anyone. They're a normal human response to abnormal relationship dynamics. Speak to yourself with the kindness you would offer to a dear friend in your situation. Your involvement in this relationship isn't a reflection of weakness or poor judgment. It's a testament to your capacity for loyalty, hope, and love, qualities that will serve you well in healthier relationships. 7. Reconnect with your identity. Who were you before this relationship? What did you love? What made you laugh? What were your dreams? Gradually reintroduce activities, interests, and connections that help you remember who you are beyond this relationship. This rediscovery process is not selfish, it's essential. You cannot build a healthy life on the foundation of an identity shaped by abuse. The road to recovery. Recovery from a trauma bond isn't linear. There will likely be moments when you feel strong and clear, followed by overwhelming urges to return to the relationship. This isn't failure, it's the natural process of breaking an addiction. Each time you resist the pullback, you're building new neural pathways and strengthening your resilience. With time and support, the grip of the trauma bond will loosen. Many worry they'll never be able to trust or love again after breaking free from a trauma bond. But I've witnessed countless survivors go on to build healthy, fulfilling relationships, both with themselves and with partners who treat them with consistent respect and kindness. The key difference in healthy relationships is consistency. It is about love that builds you up rather than tear you down. Communication that clarifies rather than confuses. Behavior that matches words. Respect that doesn't disappear when there's disagreement. Most people still don't get it though. They'll say they are good to me, they have emotions, etc. These mean nothing compared to the damage your nervous system is taking. See, a narcissist will help you in many ways, but they'll never help you in ways that allow you to see through them. I'll give you an assignment. One of the most potent ways to learn about narcissists is to research extensively on gaslighting. Read books, make research, watch videos. Know a lot about gaslighting. When you know these, you may begin to see patterns of gaslighting, projection, and blame shifting in the life of the narcissist in your life. This is why narcissists always want you busy. You think it's love. No, they want to make sure that while they are not with you, you do not have time to learn the truth. Or that there is no other person in your life that will treat your emotions better. They know that once you get better emotional treatment from some other person, they become a liability. That's why they always want to talk about weaknesses in people they realize are forming an emotional connection with you. They will jump on any occasion to point out something in others. They'll make it seem like they do it because you guys are tight. No, it's not. It's partly because they perceive a threat to their psychological control on you. If you're caught in the painful grip of a trauma bond, please know this. What you're experiencing is not love. It's not your fault. And most importantly, it's not forever. The same human capacity for attachment that made you vulnerable to a trauma bond also gives you the ability to heal and form healthy connections. Your sensitivity, empathy, and ability to love deeply are strengths. They've simply been exploited in this relationship. Breaking free requires courage, support, and persistence, but thousands have walked this path before you and found their way to healing. The journey isn't easy, but on the other side lies something precious. The chance to reclaim your life, your joy, and your authentic self. You deserve relationships that bring peace, not chaos. Certainty, not confusion. And consistent kindness, not cycles of abuse. And with the right support and understanding, that future is absolutely within your reach. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on future content about recognizing and recovering from narcissistic relationships.